Welcome to the Encore Effect, the podcast where music takes center stage in life's second act. Brought to you by Encore Creativity, America's largest choral organization for adults 55 and older. This inspiring series celebrates the transformative power of music, community, and creativity in the later years of life. Each episode will share moving personal stories from Encore singers across the country and dive into fascinating conversations with experts in neuroscience, gerontology, and the arts. Discover how choral singing is boosting brain health, improving well-being, and lighting up the lives of thousands of older adults nationwide. From retirees finding their voice for the first time, to the science behind why doctors are prescribing music for the mind, the Encore Effect proves that creativity is endless. Join us and let the music move you.
Hello and welcome back to the Encore Effect. I am so glad that you've joined us today, and I'm excited to introduce our guest, Marcie Meditch. Marcie first discovered the transformative power of choral singing in high school, where she found her musical community and a lifelong passion. After moving to DC in 1985, she sang with the National Cathedral choir before life took her in other directions, raising a family and building a successful career in architecture. Marcie is the co-founder of Meditch Murphy Architects, specializing in environmentally sustainable residential design. But here's what makes her story so compelling. At 73, she's not slowing down, she's expanding. About 10 years ago, she decided to take up jazz piano, something she's always wanted to do. That led to studying music composition with Encore University during COVID, and now she's writing her own music. Though this Midwestern at heart has called the DC area home since the 80s, she still treasures summers at her family's cottage on Lake Michigan. And she's passionate about bringing Encore's mission back to her roots. She's working to help expand Encore's presence in the Midwest. Marcie embodies everything we love about the Encore community. Proof that it's never too late to discover new passions, build community through music, and find joy in creative expression. Marcie, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Joshua. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation. You know, you and I have had so many just fabulous conversations offline, and I'm excited for our listeners to get to know you. So, Marcie, tell me just a little bit about these beginning days when you started to sing in your choir. You said that was like where you found your kind of lifelong passion. Who got you in the high school choir, and how did you join?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story because I didn't really know I could sing. And I had a couple of friends that had kind of heard me humming and invited me to join their this was in high school. They had written a performance on the history of music, and they asked me to sing a solo in their performance. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll do that. What I didn't know is that the high school choir director was in the audience, and the day after I did the performance, I got a note from the choir directors inviting me to join the high school choir. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can sing. So I kind of fell into it, but I think I was so lucky to be able to learn early on that I had this skill, talent, and I loved it, and it brought me so much joy, and it brought me a whole community of friends that I hadn't realized that it really kind of got me through high school. I mean, high school is kind of a tough ride to begin with, and finding a community of people that enjoyed singing and music as much as I did, I think really helped me get through school.
Yeah, I love that. What grade was that?
Oh, that was my junior year of high school.
Junior year. You and
Yeah.
I have similar stories. I actually sang in a talent show with our class officers. I'd
Wow.
never sung in a choir before. And the choir director was in the audience. It was like, you can sing. Come sing
Yeah.
with us. That was my
Yeah.
senior year in high school. So that's so cool. And now when you went in, did you know how to read music, or like were you just like kind of listening to the person beside you and singing
Well,
what they
when
were
I was a kid, I had taken piano lessons for like 2 or 3 years, so I did know how to read music, so that was nice to have that at least under my belt. But I kind of wanted to point something out because I think a lot of people don't realize they have, it doesn't even have to be a big talent, but it just a skill, or something that they enjoy. And I would, people especially older on think they have to be an expert to get started on something new. And I think often you have a talent that you don't realize.
Mm,
And it's good to just kind of like try it and see, because it sounds like you and I both stumbled into the music. It wasn't like it was preordained or that you kind of knew that you had that talent. It was really others that kind of noticed it and said, well, do something with it.
yeah. Well, and it takes a little bit of courage, a little bit of bravery to kind of step out and do something new like that. But when you started singing, what was maybe like a favorite memory you had from high school? And if you could like, think back right now and you think of Marcie back in her junior or senior year, what's a moment that shines for you?
I think it was probably in the choir. We were able to, we were a performing choir, so we were invited to sing at various luncheons around the city. And so being able to go down to the principal's office and get a pass that said I don't have to be there for the rest of the day because I'm singing was really a nice feeling to, it was like, yeah, okay, I can get used to this. So
So you get to skip out of school to go sing. I
well,
love
yeah, I mean, with all my friends, I mean, yeah, how often do you get to do something like that? And the school supported it because we were good, I guess, advertising for the school. We made,
Yeah. Yeah, look at these kids doing something really great for our community.
exactly right.
So you sang a solo, people saw you had talent, then you joined a choir, and joining a choir is really joining a community of voices. So what did you discover about your own voice, literally or figuratively, right, as a human being, when you started singing with others?
Well, I think often you think that singing is something that you are doing only for yourself, and that's true. But the other part of it is that it's a gift that you give to other people, because so many people are so appreciative when they hear singing, and it enriches them, and it enriches everyone who listens and everyone who sings. It's enriching for both the listener and the singer. And I think that's a really, it's just, I think it's such a valuable thing to learn, and I was lucky to learn that early on.
So you've discovered you have this talent. You love doing it. Did it continue into college and beyond?
No, that's a strange thing. No, it didn't. It's college kind of took me off in other directions, and I didn't sing for years. And then after getting married and having children, and there just seemed like there was no time for anything. And I remember feeling like I was really missing something, and I
Mm,
how much I missed the singing. And I started seeking out, okay, where can I, what am I going to do? How am I going to get involved in singing again? Because I really did miss it. I felt like part of me was just um, like just the joy that I got from singing. I was just missing that so much.
mm, mm,
So I was I my children were taking piano lessons, and I took them to, it was actually at the Levine School of Music,
mm,
and I was taking them to their piano lessons, and in the hallway there was a sign that said new choir starting for women, and I'm like, okay, there it is.
mm.
So that's how I got started singing again. But that was like in my, I'd say my 40s. So there was a good 20 years in there where I wasn't singing at all.
Yeah, so you put singing on hold for a long
A
time and
long
you were
time, yeah.
building a family and you were creating a successful architect firm. Being an architect is an artist
Yeah.
in its own right, but that didn't bring you the same joy as singing. There was something missing.
Yeah, the architecture, well, it's a lot of fun, but it's more solitary, and I really missed kind of the community that went along with singing.
What brought you to the National Cathedral Choir? That's such a cool choir and a great choir.
Yeah, well, when I first moved to Washington, D.C., I started looking around for a choir, and I lived in Cleveland Park, right near the National Cathedral, and I thought, well, this is close by. I'll just try this one. I mean, I didn't really
Yeah.
know anything about it, so I auditioned, and I actually I'll never forget that audition because I was not only was I terrified, but when the choir director handed me the music and said, okay, sight read this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so he started playing the song and I looked at the music and I'm like, this doesn't look like what he's playing. And I didn't sing at all. I didn't say anything. And he started the song over again. He said, okay, let's try again. And so he started playing and like I still couldn't sing because it just didn't look right from what he was playing. And then I walked over to the piano and looked at his music, and he had a different page open than what he had told me. And it wasn't the same song. So after that, I was fine. But anyway, that was a pretty memorable and terrifying experience. But anyway, I was able to get in the choir and I sang with them for a couple of years, I think it was until my kids were born, and then there just was no time.
That's one of the beautiful things about Encore. When we talk about what people love about Encore, we hear all the time, there are no auditions. You don't have to go through an audition process. Anyone can sing. And you just talk about this terrifying audition.
Right, right. So I was relieved when I when I heard that encore. Oh, good, I don't have to audition. So
You're
uh,
like, sign me up.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that's so important because so many people are just that's a game stopper right there if they have to audition. And I think that's unfortunate because so many people I think have really lovely voices, but they the performance anxiety that comes with trying out is enough to deter a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, Marcie, you're singing now and participating in Encore University, and you also have become just a wonderful supporter of Encore and our programs. And you've been working hand in hand with me to start our programming in the Midwest. And because of you, we now have programs in Northeast Ohio, right outside of Cleveland, and in Indianapolis, and hoping to continue to grow that. But what is it about the Midwest that you want to experience what Encore has to bring?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, but just I often have felt since moving to the East Coast from the Midwest, growing up in the Midwest, it always felt like everything kind of new and innovative was always happening on either the East Coast or the West Coast, and it took a long time for things to get to the Midwest, and I just always kind of made me mad in a way. It was like, wait a minute, we're here too, and let's include everybody in these really good ideas. So when we started talking about Encore, I was like, okay, come on, let's get it in the Midwest, not just the East Coast and the West Coast, because it's such a great program. And I think it's something I know many people that I grew up with that just would love to be a part of something like Encore.
Well, and I thank you for all that you've done and are doing to help us expand. I know that one day we'll have many programs and choirs across the Midwest, but you and I have talked about this really amazing like show choir culture and choral culture growing up in the Midwest, and us wanting to continue that as adults, and then of course on to being an older adult. So there is a great vibrant choral community there. There's just a gap for older adults.
Yeah, I agree.
So we've got to create those opportunities. So if you think back at your beginnings as an artist and as a choral singer, is there anybody that you feel was so influential on that journey that you look back and say, if it wasn't for this person, maybe I wouldn't be singing at Encore today and helping Josh expand the work?
Well, I think actually it was another friend of mine, Joanne, that joined Encore several years before I did, that kept encouraging me to sign up because I was singing with the River Road Unitarian Choir for about a dozen years, and then COVID hit, and we tried to do everything online, but it it kind of to me, it kind of faltered after a while because it was just not the same as singing in person.
Hmm.
And after COVID, I think I decided that um, I wanted, well, one of the appealing things about Encore was that the rehearsals were in the middle of the day and not at night. And I had kind of decided that I didn't want to do evening rehearsals anymore. I just was more comfortable going to daytime rehearsals. So that was a big plus, I think. And I appreciate that Encore kind of recognizes that.
Mm. And
Yeah.
so you came to us through Encore University. We have most people know us through our choirs and our camps and trips and all the kind of in-person experiences. But Encore University, which we love, was birthed out of the need to continue programming and the need for connection and lifelong learning during COVID.
Hmm.
And you took a class on composition. And as we stated at the beginning of the podcast, you now write your own music, which I think is so cool. And we actually, one of our conductors sang one of your songs at our scholarship cabaret. So tell us about that. How did you know that you wanted to write music, and what is that journey been like for you?
Well, I can credit my piano teacher, Jeffrey Chappelle, for encouraging me to write music. I had been taking the jazz piano lessons, like you mentioned in the introduction, for a couple of years, and in learning that process, there's a whole lot of improvisation, and I found myself kind of veering further and further from what the written note was in front of me. And after a while, he just said, "Well, why don't you just start writing your own ideas down?" And it really had never occurred to me, that I could do that. So it was really his encouragement that kind of led me to start writing, and I think it kind of took hold, like you mentioned earlier, that during COVID when I took the composition class with Jonathan Cole, I think his name was.
Coleman, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and it was a much more kind of structured class on composition, and it really moved my whole, I think my progress. I made a lot of progress during that class, and it was just a lot of fun to do it with other people and get
Mhm.
feedback. So that kind of, I felt like, improved my skills a little bit. I still have a long way to go. I'm constantly frustrated that I feel like what I do is too simple because I don't really have much training in it, but I just do it anyway because it's really another way of self-expression and sharing something you care about with other people. So I try not to be too hard on myself on not being on not sounding quote unquote professional.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what inspires you when you are writing music, and what's one of your favorite topics that you feel like you've centered a composition around?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I spend my summers right near Lake Michigan. So Lake Michigan has been a huge inspiration for a lot of the writings. In fact, the one of the longest pieces I wrote was during COVID, because I had the time. And I met with my piano teacher weekly, and I wrote a piece called Storms Are Coming, and it was all about the storms that come across Lake Michigan and kind of using that as a metaphor for what we were all going through with COVID.
Mm,
And pretty much that composition took me the good, at least, I don't know, 6 to 8 months of lockdown. That's what
right.
I did is I wrote music that whole time, and it really helped me cope with kind of all what we all know we went through, which was kind of a combination of being afraid and being hopeful and just hanging on to our loved ones. So
Mm,
that music really helped me kind of get through all of that, all that we were going through. And then along with Lake Michigan, I think we were just talking about, I have a great big garden up here that's just full of life and insects and bugs and birds, and it's also been an inspiration for a lot of my compositions. And I wrote one recently that's called Garden Walks, and it's about the different moods of a garden during different parts of the day and different parts of the year. And I wrote it during a time when a dear friend of mine had been diagnosed with a fatal disease and was slowly, her life was slipping away. And she was a big gardener too, and we shared that.
Mm.
And so this piece ended up being an homage to her, and it again, I was able to use music just to help me process really difficult emotions. So it's always been a source of solace for me as well as a source of joy.
That's beautiful, Marcie. Thank you for sharing that. I find that too. The music is, this kind of thing that weaves in and out of our lives, and we think about music when we go through major life transitions or a difficult period of life or a really joyful period of life, and somehow music just tends to always be the foundation of all of that. When I think
Mm.
about that in my own life and I think about kind of these core memories, I also think about music and that centers around that. So I appreciate you sharing that. I can kind of
Yeah.
hear in my head your garden music. It's probably nothing like what you wrote, but I'm singing, something about what I might see with all your beautiful insects and
Yeah,
birds in your garden.
right.
So that's really
Yeah.
good inspiration. So when you think about Encore and our mission and what we're doing to keep people connected and keep people singing and keep people finding the joy of life through music, what would you say to people who have never tried singing but they really want to? What advice would you give them about trying to sing kind of in the second half of life?
Yeah, I think I've thought about that a lot because I've always taken it for granted that I could sing. I didn't realize it was a thing that people are, people say, "Oh, I can't sing." And I thought, "Oh, I don't believe it." I just don't believe it. Everybody has a voice, everybody knows how to talk. I think everybody can learn to sing, but I think it's so many of us have spent our lives and careers, focused on others, like taking care of other people or taking, working and developing our careers. And I think finally when we get to a point at this age, it's time to take care of ourselves and do something for
Mhm.
ourselves. And I think it helps. I think if you're intimidated about trying something new like singing, it helps to look at it not as like, oh, I can't perform, I don't know how to do this. It's more like this is something I really want to do for myself, and that's important too. And it's a way of bringing joy to yourself, and guess what? You end up bringing joy to other people at the same time. So it serves both
I
purposes.
love that, Marcy. And you bring a lot of joy to Encore, and I appreciate your incredible support of our work. And I look forward to all the great things that we're going to do together. And thank you for sharing your story of singing and your journey. And I wish you many great compositions and choral experiences ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Joshua, for being such an amazing leader at Encore. It's just made it all really worthwhile for me, and I know for so many people. So thank you.
Well, take it from Marcy, friends. Go out and join an Encore program or a choir near you. It will bring you joy and do something for yourself. You deserve it. So join us next time on the Encore Effect. We'll see you then.